We're now going to talk about how to add ceiling tiles to the top of our room. The first thing you need to understand is that the ceiling tiles have to be placed properly, which is why I've placed these evenly spaced dots on the back wall. If we're using the standard ½ equals 1 foot scale, then these would be ½ spaces between these dots. Our first step is to draw orthogonal lines from those dots outward and off the paper. You don't want any lines on the back wall, which is to say that this area here will remain free of any and all lines. But you must make sure that they are orthogonals. That's to say that they are going to the center of this plus sign, which would be our vanishing point. So you see that I've drawn in my first orthogonal line. I've drawn a couple of dotted lines here just to show you that they are actually going to the vanishing point. I'm going to get rid of them now, and I'm going to start putting in a series of lines that are all orthogonals using those points that I discussed earlier. You can see that you're starting to get a rainbow effect, or if you prefer, a sunbeam effect, where the lines are starting to really look as though they are getting bigger as they come towards you. The final line, which meets the left wall, will obviously use the corner orthogonal like this. Now it looks as though our ceiling rays are complete, except that we have an issue over here where the room opens up. I believe that there should be another line coming out, but how are we to find where that line goes if there is one? The answer is we need to very lightly, because this will be a guideline, take the top of our room and extend it out from the corner there. And then we need to continue these marks that we made originally. And we would, if we're using the ½ equals 1 foot, we'd have to measure a ½ inch out here and put another mark. And then if this continued, we'd need yet another and then another. And now we're going to see if there would be room for another line here. And in fact, it looks as though if we line this up with the vanishing point, that there actually should be one more line. Let me see if I can get that a little bit more exact for you. It's obviously quite difficult to do this accurately, but I will do my best for you. All right, obviously these would be straight and not curvy lines. All right, so you can see that I've wound up with a line that would not have been possible if I hadn't brought that guideline out. At this point, this would obviously be erased. We don't have a line going into our wall. All right, now, the next thing we have to do is we have to create the horizontal lines that will make these look like tiles. So how do we get started? Well, since it's not a finite space, it is a space that could go on forever, we're going to use the country road thing. If you haven't watched that video, you should go back and do that now. So the first thing I'm going to do is decide where my first tile, the tile that starts at the back wall and comes out, where does it end? Now, just like in the country road thing, you'll remember when we did the country road thing, we started with a top line, a bottom line. We had the post on the country road, and then of course we had to decide where our next post was going to be, and then we figured out where the center was by using an X, drew a guideline, and then we went from the top through the middle to get to the bottom, and that's where our next post was. We're going to take that and we're going to use that right up here. So you can see quite easily that we have already got the lines that we need. We have this line, this center line, and this line already there. 1, 2, 3. By virtue of the fact that we have already gone ahead and measured this, we have 3 lines that are ready to go. So since we have our lines ready to go, we just need to determine where our first tile is going to be. So let me pop that in. So there is, if you like to think of it this way, as my second post on the country road. The back wall there, that's the first. Now, how do I determine where the next post goes? Well, that's quite easy. I'm going to go from right here, which is, let's call it the top of the post. That's the first post. The second is right here, and that's the middle of the second. So I'm going to connect the first with the second, and that gives me the next line, which will be my next tile. Now I can go from the top of number 2 to the middle of number 3, and that will give me the fourth divide. And you can see that my tiles are actually getting bigger as they move closer to me, as they should. You'll also notice that I'm using different colors and different shapes as I go to make it clear what exactly it is I'm doing. Now you can see that one wasn't quite horizontal. In fact, it's quite off. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to correct that a little bit. That was just a little bit too off for my liking. Okay. So now you can see that we have the divisions of our tiles. At this point, since it's all spaced nicely, now we can take this first tile and just extend it until we hit the wall. Extend it until we hit the wall or go right off the paper. And there we are on this side. Now on this side, we do the same thing. I'm not sure where this goes. There might have been just a sliver of tile visible there. And of course, these are all horizontals. So now you can see that by using the country road thing, we've been able to create ceiling that looks as though we have a small tile back there and a large tile closer to us. It's a really neat illusion. Now the one thing I'd like to point out to you is that when I put in the first line over here, I put it in quite close to the back wall. If you start with a large gap, then when you go drawing your lines, the next line might be so close to the top of your paper, or it might be that it's off your paper entirely and you never get to see any other tiles except for those first 2. So it's always a good idea, if you want to draw 2, 3 tiles, that you make sure that you have, in fact, put the first tile edge, once again, right there, as close to this back corner as you can. Go ahead and practice, and good luck. Oh yes, one thing before I go. I've put this back in here so that you can see how we went about adding that extra line to our wall. There may be more than one, and you may have to take this line and enlarge it and add more marks as you go out. Just be careful to make sure that you do measure these points, and then you need to erase them when you're all done, since that line does not exist. Okay, bye.